I am on the home stretch of this CB550 build, and you guys will see the final episode shortly on it. But I wanted to take a little bit of time today to kind of go over current projects that are in the shop, some projects that are still in storage that you guys haven't seen for a long time, just kind of give you an update on everything around here. I am going to need to sell some of these projects in order to kind of fund everything going forward. So I figured now would be a good time to just kind of give you a full overview of everything I have, and then you can leave some comments below. Let me know what you're excited to see. Let me know which ones you would get rid of, which ones I for sure need to keep, and then we'll figure out where to go after this one's done. First off, we'll start with this 78 CB550. I bought this bike for a couple of $100 and found out it had very bad internal engine damage. It turns out a local shop actually worked on it, and when they did, they put the oil filter spring in the wrong spot. So that blocked off the oil passages, made it lock up, and basically grenaded the old motor. So we yanked that out. I went and grabbed a spare motor off of my shelf, tested it to make sure it had good oil pressure, everything looked good. Moved on to modifying the frame for our tough side seat, giving that a nice cleanup and paint, and then it was back to reassembly. So that brings us to where we are now. This bike is probably about 90-95% done, and it actually will be for sale when I finish it up here in the next, I don't know, week or two. Next is the BMW R65 project. When I first bought this thing, it was this sweet, shimmery 1980s blue. I pulled it into the shop and got it running. Once I confirmed the motor was in good shape, I went ahead and pulled it out of the frame, went through my storage, found a perfect gas tank to do on this build, moved on to making my very first custom rear subframe, learned a lot of good techniques. I think it turned out really well. I did my patented classic octane safety test. Once all that checked out, we were able to order our custom one-off seat from our buddies over at Toughside. Then we were able to get a whole bunch of parts from our local shop of choice, which is Revival Cycles, as well as a few other secret parts that we'll be installing on this bike very soon. And that brings us to where we are now. I would hope to have this done by Hand Built Show 2023. Maybe we'll shoot for 2024. The lathe that Revival Cycles gave me still definitely needs some love. We got it running in a previous video, but found a ton of slop in the carriage. I actually did get it wired up to a variable frequency drive to allow me to run it in the shop a little bit easier, but that's where we've left it. So this thing definitely still needs a lot of love. I'm looking forward to jumping back onto it soon. Onto my beloved CB500. So I brought this thing home from auction a couple of years ago. The outside was in really great shape, but we determined there was something wrong on the inside of the engine because it was locked up. So after some careful diagnostics, we figured out that factory engine was no good. So I pulled one off the shelf and rebuilt it. With the rebuilt engine ready to go, we gave everything a good clean, put it back together. It's so smooth. I didn't really tighten that up very well. It's like, oh my God, it's like a dream. It's like I'm sitting on a big old couch. So as much as I love this bike, if we don't come up with any new interesting content to make with it, I really can't justify keeping it. So I encourage you guys to leave a comment below. Let me know if you have any ideas of what you want to see on this bike. If not, we'll probably throw a for sale sign on this one pretty soon. The BMW F800 GS is definitely the first bike on the chopping block. I bought this thing a couple of years ago, crashed at auction, got it home, repaired it, got it running again, and then did, what every BMW GS owner does, and basically just went straight to Starbucks. A lot of the guys that I used to ride this bike with have now actually gone to dirt bikes instead of big heavy ADV bikes. So I really don't ride this thing as much as I used to. So it's going to go up for sale very soon, hopefully to be replaced by a dedicated dirt bike. The 69 Camaro, on the other hand, is here to stay. You guys have seen me pull the old tired 350 out, steal a LS and 6-speed out of a GTO, build that up with a nice big cam, put it back in the car, and actually fire it up for the first time. Once we got it all tuned up, we actually took it for its first test drive. And now's the time for me to get it ready to actually take out and enjoy on a regular basis. So we have a full dash with custom gauges to install, AC system, some C6 Z06 brakes I want to get set up on the car. And then we actually want to get out and race this thing this year and have some fun with it. So it's very much here to stay. The Corvette drift car is a hard one to figure out what I want to do with it. So you guys followed me as I fixed this thing up from the absolute dumpster fire it was when we bought it from auction. We did some body work. There is still a decent amount of body repair to do, especially on that rear tub. We pulled the engine out because it was leaking oil like crazy, and that's when we discovered that this thing actually has a fully built 408 cubic inch LS2 with a huge Texas Speed cam, LS3 heads and intake. So once we got all that sorted, we actually were able to put it back in the car and get this thing out on a proper test drive. There is still a ton of fun to be had in this car. We have a handbrake installed now. I still have an angle kit to install and a few other things. So I'm going to knock that stuff out on the channel here soon and hopefully take this thing to its first drift event. Then we'll decide its fate after that. Speaking of Corvette dumpster fires, I have this thing hanging out in the yard, which my wife absolutely loves. So this is an 03 Z06 I actually bought for parts to fix the black car. But this thing has a clean title, and I actually picked it up for like a couple of $100. So we could make some kind of crazy vet cart, maybe steal this chassis and put it under like my Model A or like a C10 pickup, or I don't know. I'm curious to see what you guys would do with this. I could also just steal the parts off of it and get rid of it. But something's got to happen with this thing soon because, yeah, it's a bit of an eyesore. Speaking of my Model A, this is my 31 5-window coupe. It's basically just a steel body in desperate need of a chop, so we need to figure out some sort of fun chassis to put this thing on. I want to build a traditional style hot rod, but that actually drives really well, that we can go out and race or autocross or whatever we want to do with it, something that is actually fun to drive. So that's where I was thinking about stealing the Corvette chassis, but I'm totally open to ideas, so leave a comment of what you do with this thing. I also have a non-car or motorcycle project waiting its turn over here. So this is a horizontal mill I got for free as a package deal with some other machines. I have a very specific use case in mind for this thing, but I need to figure out, one, how to get it all the way over into the shop because it weighs like 2,000 pounds, and then two, make some room for it in the shop where it's gonna live. So this thing will be coming up pretty soon. I'm pretty excited about it actually. In the shed, I have yet another classic Honda, CB500 of course. I bought this one at auction a couple of years ago. I'm in no rush to build another classic Honda at the moment, so this one's probably going to be sitting out here for a little while longer until I need that Honda itch scratched again. This is another BMW R65 I picked up with a clean title for a couple of $100. It does have a locked up engine though, so we need to do a will it run to see if we can free that thing up, and then, I don't know, who knows what we're going to do with it. Next to that is a CB550 parts bike. I actually want to steal that engine out, put it in something crazy like a go-kart or a monkey bike or something, who knows. Then we have the Apocalypse Triumph. So I pulled this into the shop very early lockdown of COVID, started to play around with it, started to do an engine rebuild after we found some internal issues, and then got swept away with customer bikes and other stuff going on, so we actually didn't end up finishing the project. So this is something I could definitely pull into the shop. Only issue is I don't have a title for this bike, so getting it street legal would be difficult. And as we approach the end of the list here, we have my little Honda 305 Dream. So I pulled this into the shop a couple of years ago and did a will it run on it. Came back to life pretty easy despite having been sitting around for an unknown amount of time. I have a very crazy idea of what we can do with this bike, but I do need it to be street legal. So I don't currently have a title for it. I'm in the process of doing some research to figure out what I can do to get this thing street legal. As soon as I figure that out, I'm going to be pulling it into the shop and we're going to be kind of setting it up for a pretty epic adventure. So I really hope we can do that because I think it'd be some awesome content. Just got to figure out how to get that plate first. And the last two bikes on the list are my Yamaha JT1 and Kawasaki MC1 mini bikes. We have actually done will it run videos on both of these. And now I'm kind of at a loss of what I want to do. I thought about building maybe like little mini cafe racers or something like that. So leave a comment below. Let me know if you want to see anything crazy done with these bikes. If not, I'll probably just keep them. I think they're kind of collector's items at this point because they're pretty rare. I also think they're pretty rad, so I'm in no rush to get rid of these guys. So as you can see, I am a bit of a project hoarder. I tend to buy a new car or motorcycle, tinker with it for a little bit, and then that new shiny object on Facebook Marketplace kind of steals away my attention. So I desperately need to clean up our project list. I am really curious what you guys want to see. So leave a comment below. Let me know which project you're dying to see back in the shop, which one you would just cut bait on and get rid of. And I will actually utilize that information to determine what we do going forward on the channel. In the meantime, I will throw a link to some of my most popular videos. If you saw something in this video that you hadn't seen before, there most likely is probably a whole playlist of videos on that particular project. So I encourage you guys to go check that out in the meantime. I'll see you on the next one.